The dust cloud kicked up by the departing stagecoach settled slowly over the desolate crossroads, leaving Emma Caldwell standing alone with nothing but a worn carpetbag and the bitter taste of injustice in her mouth. The late afternoon sun blazed mercilessly overhead, casting harsh shadows across the empty prairie that stretched endlessly in all directions. Emma pulled her sun-faded blue bonnet lower over her auburn hair and picked up her bag, with hands that trembled only slightly. At 26, she had already survived more heartbreak and betrayal than most people faced in a lifetime. But this latest blow felt different, final in a way that made her chest tight. With suppressed panic, the charges against her had been as fabricated as they were devastating. Someone had planted stolen jewelry in her boarding house room, then discovered it during a convenient search. The town council had wasted no time in declaring her a thief and ordering her immediate banishment. Emma knew the real reason for her exile had nothing to do with stolen jewelry. It had everything to do with her refusal to accept the advances of Mayor Harrison Blackwood, whose wife had been dead less than a year when Emma had publicly rejected his proposal and his less honorable suggestions. She had made herself a target. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Emma turn, her heart sinking as she recognized Deputy Marshal Wade Fletcher. He dismounted with obvious satisfaction at finding her alone and vulnerable. Well, Fletcher drawled, his pale eyes taking in her solitary figure. Emma Caldwell, all alone in the big wide world. How does it feel to finally get what you deserve? I suppose that depends on what you think I deserve, Deputy, Emma replied evenly. Though her fingers tightened on her bag's handle, Fletcher's face darkened. He had been one of Blackwood's most eager supporters, motivated by his own bruised ego after she had turned down his crude propositions months earlier. You always did have a smart mouth, Fletcher snarled. Maybe a few nights sleeping rough will teach you some humility, and maybe a few years of honest work will teach you the difference between justice and revenge. Emma shot back. Fletcher took a threatening step toward her, his hand dropping to his gun. You're not in town anymore, Emma. Out here, nobody's going to hear you scream. Emma's heart began to race, but she held her ground. Touch me, and you'll discover just how loudly I can scream, Deputy, and how accurately I can describe your face to the territorial marshal. Fletcher's attention was caught by something behind Emma, the steady rhythm of another horse approaching. The rider who emerged from the heat shimmer was tall and lean, sitting his black stallion with easy confidence. His dark hair was touched with silver at the temples, and his weathered face bore lines that spoke of years spent under harsh skies. Emma had never seen him before, but Fletcher clearly had. The deputy's hand moved away from his gun, his posture shifting from aggressive to defensive. Marcus, Fletcher said with forced casualness, what brings you this far from your ranch? The newcomer dismounted with fluid grace. Heard there was some trouble in town today, he said, his voice carrying a slight southern drawl. Thought I'd see if anyone needed assistance. Fletcher's laugh was harsh. No trouble here, just cleaning up some unwanted trash. Emma Caldwell was caught stealing, and the town council voted to ban her. Marcus's gaze shifted to Emma, and she felt something unexpected happen in her chest, a flutter of warmth. His eyes were kind but shrewd, the eyes of a man who recognized injustice when he encountered it. Miss Caldwell, Marcus said, touching his hat brim respectfully. I'm Marcus Dalton. Would you mind telling me your side of this story? Emma glanced at Fletcher, who was watching with growing anger. Mr. Dalton, I appreciate your concern, but I don't want to cause you trouble with the town. I didn't ask about Fletcher's orders, Marcus said mildly. I asked about your side. The simple statement, delivered without hostility but with unmistakable authority, made Emma realize that Marcus Dalton was not easily intimidated by small-town politics. Someone planted stolen jewelry in my room and arranged for it to be found, she said quietly. I was given no chance to defend myself. The town council simply accepted my accuser's word and voted to exile me immediately. Marcus nodded slowly. And who were your accusers, Miss Caldwell? Now see here, Dalton, Fletcher interrupted harshly. This isn't your business. Marcus turned his attention to the deputy, and Emma saw something shift in his expression. Deputy Fletcher, You and I both know that proper authority requires proper procedure. Miss Caldwell, were you given legal representation? Were witnesses called on your behalf? Emma shook her head. It all happened very quickly. Mayor Blackwood said there was no need for formalities when the evidence was so clear. I see. Marcus's voice remained conversational, but Emma could sense anger beneath his calm exterior. And I suppose it's just a coincidence that your exile comes so soon after you publicly rejected the mayor's romantic overtures? Fletcher's face went white, then red. How dare you suggest? I'm not suggesting anything. Marcus interrupted. I'm stating facts that are common knowledge to anyone. Who cares to look beyond the convenient fiction your town council has constructed? Emma stared at Marcus in amazement. In less than 5 minutes, this stranger had seen through the web of lies that had destroyed her life. Miss Caldwell, Marcus said, turning back to her. Do you have somewhere to go? Family? Friends who might take you in? Emma's throat tightened. No, Mr. Dalton. I'm alone in the world. Marcus studied her face with those penetrating dark eyes. Then he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. No, he said quietly. You're not alone anymore. Miss Caldwell, I'd like to offer you a position at my ranch. I need someone to manage my household and assist with business correspondence. The work is honest. The pay is fair, and you'd have your own quarters and complete respectability. Emma felt her knees go weak with relief. Mr. Dalton, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Marcus replied with a slight smile. Say you'll give me a chance to prove that not all men are like the ones who've wronged you. Fletcher exploded. Dalton, you can't be serious. This woman is a convicted thief. Marcus's smile disappeared. Deputy Fletcher, Miss Caldwell was convicted by a kangaroo court run by a corrupt politician. If you have a problem with my employment decisions, you're welcome to bring your concerns to the territorial marshal. Fletcher mounted his horse and wheeled it around. This isn't over, he said coldly. Sooner or later, people will see you for what you really are. They already do, Marcus said quietly. They see a woman of courage and integrity who refused to be bullied by cowards. Now move along. Deputy, after Fletcher rode away, Emma turned to face her unexpected savior with tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Marcus, he said gently. When she started to thank him, just Marcus, and before you thank me, you should know I'm getting the better bargain here. My ranch has been falling apart because I can't manage the business and practical sides simultaneously. Emma studied his face, looking for signs of pity, but finding only sincerity. Marcus, why are you doing this? You don't know me, don't owe me anything. Why risk making enemies for a complete stranger? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting toward the distant mountains. Because someone did the same thing for me once, when I needed it most, he said simply. Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because, he paused, then looked directly into her eyes, because from the moment I saw you standing here, alone, I knew you belonged somewhere better than this. Emma felt something crack open in her chest, a wall she had built around her heart over years of disappointment. This man was offering her more than just employment. He was offering her hope. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I'll come with you. Marcus smiled, and Emma felt the world shift around her in ways she couldn't yet understand. As he helped her onto his horse and they rode toward his ranch, she found herself thinking that maybe some stories did have happy endings after all. The Dalton Ranch sprawled across a valley that seemed to exist in a different world from the harsh desert Emma had left behind. Rolling hills covered in sweet grass stretched toward distant mountains, while a clear stream wound through stands of cottonwood trees. The main house was built of local stone and timber, substantial and welcoming, with a wide veranda and flower boxes that spoke of care and prosperity. Marcus helped Emma down from his horse, and she found herself looking around with wonder. Cattle grazed peacefully in the distance, their sleek coats testament to good breeding. The barn and outbuildings were well maintained, everything speaking of a man who took pride in his work. It's beautiful, Emma said softly. How long have you lived here? 8 years, Marcus replied. I bought the land from an old Mexican rancher who wanted to retire to California. It was pretty rundown then, but I saw the potential. An older Mexican man emerged from the barn, his weathered face creasing into a smile when he saw Marcus. He was small and weary, with intelligent dark eyes and easy confidence. "Patron," the man called out. "You are back earlier than expected, and with a guest, I see. Emma, I'd like you to meet Miguel Santos," Marcus said warmly. "He's my foreman, my friend, and the man who actually keeps this place running. Miguel, this is Miss Emma Caldwell. She's going to be helping us with the business side of the operation." Miguel approached them, taking Emma's measure with sharp eyes before speaking courteously. "Señorita Caldwell, welcome to Rancho Esperanza. I hope you will be very happy here." "Rancho Esperanza," Emma repeated. "What does that mean?" "Ranch of Hope," Miguel replied with a gentle smile. Marcus chose the name when he bought the land. He said this place was his second chance, his hope for a better future. Emma glanced at Marcus, who was busying himself with the horse's tack. She was beginning to understand that there were depths to this man that would take time to uncover. The interior of the house was as impressive as the exterior, with high ceilings, polished wood floors, and elegant furniture. But Emma noticed details that spoke of a household, without a woman's touch, papers stacked haphazardly, dust gathering in corners, meals clearly taken standing up rather than properly served. "Your room is upstairs," Marcus said, leading her up a curved staircase. It has its own sitting area and a view of the valley. The room was larger and more luxurious than any space Emma had ever called her own. A four-poster bed dominated one wall, while French doors opened onto a small balcony overlooking the garden. There was a writing desk by the window, bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, and a fireplace for warmth. "Marcus," Emma said, turning to face him with panic in her voice, "this is too much. I can't possibly accept such luxury when I'm just an employee." "You're not just an employee," Marcus said firmly. "You're a member of this household, and you deserve to be treated with respect and comfort." "Emma, I meant what I said back there. You belong here, and I want you to feel like this is truly your home." Emma sank into the chair by the window, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in her circumstances. This morning she had been respected but insecure, by afternoon branded a thief and exiled. And now she found herself in luxury she had never dared to dream of. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why are you being so kind to me? For all you know, the accusations could be true." Marcus pulled a chair closer and sat down, his dark eyes serious but gentle. "Emma, I've lived long enough to recognize honesty when I see it. The way you carried yourself back there, the dignity you maintained, even when you had lost everything, those aren't the qualities of a thief." "But how can you be so sure?" "Because I've been where you are," Marcus said quietly. "I know what it's like to be falsely accused, to have your entire life destroyed by lies and political manipulation. I know the particular kind of courage it takes to keep your head up when everyone around you is convinced you're guilty of something you didn't do." Emma leaned forward, studying his face. "What happened to you, Marcus?" Marcus was quiet for so long Emma thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. "I was a cavalry officer during the war," he began, "stationed in Kansas, dealing with conflicts between settlers and local tribes. There was an incident, a massacre of a peaceful Cheyenne village that I tried to prevent. When I reported what really happened, I was accused of treason." Emma felt her heart clench. "What did you do?" "I testified at a court-martial that I thought would expose the truth. Instead, the officers who had ordered the massacre used their influence to paint me as a traitor. I was dishonorably discharged and blacklisted. My fiancée broke our engagement, rather than associate herself with a disgraced officer. So you came here to start over." "I came here to disappear," Marcus corrected. "But Miguel found me during my first winter, half-starved and nearly dead from pneumonia. He helped me see that running away from injustice wasn't the same as overcoming it." Emma understood now why Marcus had been so quick to see through the lies that had destroyed her life. He recognized a kindred spirit. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing the truth, for offering me this chance, for making me feel like I'm not completely alone." Marcus reached out and gently covered her hand with his, sending unexpected warmth through Emma's body. "You're not alone anymore, Emma. You have a home here for as long as you want it. That's a promise." Over the following days, Emma threw herself into her responsibilities with determination. Marcus hadn't exaggerated about needing help. His desk was buried under months of correspondence, bills, and contracts requiring review. His bookkeeping was haphazard, and Emma could see his natural generosity had cost him money in dubious business deals. But as she worked, Emma began to understand the true scope of Marcus's operation. The ranch wasn't just successful, it was thriving. His cattle were among the finest in the territory. His horses sought after by buyers from as far away as California. Marcus Dalton wasn't just competent, he was building an empire. More importantly, Emma began to see the kind of man he truly was. She watched him interact with workers of various backgrounds who might have found employment difficult elsewhere. Miguel had told her Marcus never asked about a man's past, only about his willingness to work hard and treat others with respect. She saw his gentleness with animals, his generosity to struggling neighbors, his quiet donations to church and school. But it was the evenings Emma treasured most, when they would sit on the veranda talking about literature, politics, and philosophy while stars appeared overhead. Marcus treated her as an intellectual equal whose thoughts and feelings mattered. It was during one of these conversations, about 3 weeks after Emma's arrival, that Marcus brought up a subject weighing on both their minds. "Emma," he said carefully, "I've been thinking about your situation in Cedar Falls, about the accusations and the way you were treated." Emma tensed, afraid he might be having second thoughts. "What about it?" "I think we should fight back," Marcus said firmly. "I think we should clear your name and expose the corruption that drove you out." Emma stared at him in amazement. "Marcus, that's impossible. Mayor Blackwood controls everything in Cedar Falls. What could we possibly do against that kind of power?" "We could start by hiring a competent lawyer to investigate the charges," Marcus replied. "Someone from outside the area who isn't beholden to Blackwood's influence." "That would cost a fortune," Emma protested. "And even if we could prove my innocence, what's the point? I don't want to go back to Cedar Falls. I'm happy here, Marcus. Happier than I've ever been." Marcus leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "It's not about going back, Emma. It's about justice. It's about making sure Blackwood can't do to someone else what he did to you. And it's about—" He paused, struggling with words. "It's about you knowing that you deserve all the good things coming into your life." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes at the fierce protectiveness in his voice. "Marcus, I already know that. You've shown me that every day." "Have I?" Marcus asked. Softly, "Emma, I want to tell you something, but I'm afraid it might change things between us." Emma's heart began to race. "Tell me," she whispered. Marcus stood and walked to the veranda's edge, gripping the railing. "I'm in love with you," he said quietly. "I have been almost from the moment I saw you standing alone at that crossroads. You're brave and intelligent and beautiful, and every day makes me more certain that you're the missing piece my life was lacking." Emma rose on unsteady legs, her heart pounding. "Marcus, I know the timing is terrible," he continued without turning. "I know you've been hurt by men who used their power over you, and I don't want you to feel like I'm doing the same thing. The last thing I want is for you to think your security here depends on returning my feelings." The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in early October, delivered by a nervous young man who rode away as quickly as his horse could carry him. Emma recognized the official seal of Cedar Falls immediately, and her hands trembled as she broke open the wax and unfolded the document inside. Marcus found her 20 minutes later, sitting motionless at his desk with the letter spread before her, and tears streaming down her cheeks. He knelt beside her chair and scanned the formal legal language. "A warrant for your arrest," he said grimly, "on charges of grand theft and conspiracy to defraud. They're claiming you stole not just jewelry, but money from the school's treasury." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Judge Hartwell is ordering me to return to Cedar Falls within 10 days to face trial, or federal marshals will be sent to arrest me." Marcus crumpled the letter in his fist. "This is Blackwood's doing. He's escalating because he knows we've been asking questions, hiring investigators. He's trying to force you back where he can control the outcome." Over the past month, Marcus had hired a Denver lawyer named Jonathan Hayes, who specialized in political corruption cases. Hayes had been quietly gathering evidence, interviewing former Cedar Falls residents who had left under suspicious circumstances, documenting a pattern of abuse that stretched back years. But their investigation had not gone unnoticed. Emma had received threatening letters, ranch hands reported strangers asking questions in nearby towns, and Miguel had twice caught men watching the ranch from the hills. "We could run," Emma said suddenly, looking up with desperate hope. "Pack up tonight and head for California or Oregon territory, somewhere Blackwood's influence can't reach." Marcus studied her face, seeing fear but also steel beneath it. "Is that what you want, Emma? To spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder?" Emma closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath. "No," she admitted. "I want to fight. I want to clear my name and expose Blackwood. But Marcus, if we go back to Cedar Falls, there's no guarantee we'll get a fair trial. Blackwood controls the judge, the jury, probably the federal marshal too. Not all of them," a new voice said from the doorway. Emma and Marcus turned to see Jonathan Hayes standing there, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled from hard travel. "I assume you've received Blackwood's latest threat." Marcus stood up grimly. "You've been investigating him for weeks, Hayes. Please tell me you've found something we can use." Hayes moved into the room and set his leather satchel on the desk, his thin face animated with excitement. "Oh, I've found something, all right. Several somethings, Mr. Dalton, Miss Caldwell. I believe we have enough evidence not only to clear Emma's name, but to bring down Blackwood's entire operation." Emma felt hope flutter in her chest. "What kind of evidence?" Hayes opened his satchel and began spreading documents across the desk. Bank records showing unusual transfers from the town treasury to Blackwood's personal accounts. Testimony from 3 women who were pressured to leave town after rejecting his advances. Most importantly, a sworn statement from the jeweler in Millfield who sold Blackwood the items planted in your room. Marcus leaned forward, studying the papers with growing excitement. "The jeweler is willing to testify." "More than willing," Hayes replied with satisfaction. "Blackwood never paid him, and the man is tired of being cheated. He's prepared to swear that Blackwood bought those items specifically to frame someone." Emma felt tears of relief. "So we can prove the jewelry was planted. We can prove much. More than that," Hayes said grimly. "Emma, you weren't Blackwood's first victim. Over the past 5 years, at least 6 other people have been driven out under suspicious circumstances. All of them were either potential threats to his power or people who had something he wanted." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "And the federal authorities, can we trust them to act on this evidence?" Hayes smiled for the first time since entering. "That's the beautiful part. The territorial governor has been getting complaints about Cedar Falls for months. He's been looking for an excuse to investigate, but he needed solid evidence. What we've uncovered is exactly what he's been waiting for." Emma stood up slowly, feeling strength flow back into her limbs as hope replaced despair. "So what do we do? We go back to Cedar Falls," Hayes said firmly, "but not as fugitives or defendants. We go back with federal marshals, with territorial authority, and with enough evidence to turn Blackwood's kangaroo court into a real trial, where justice actually has a chance." Marcus moved to Emma's side and took her hand. "Are you ready for this, Emma? It won't be easy. Blackwood will fight dirty, and his supporters won't give up without a struggle." Emma looked around the study that had become her sanctuary, thinking about the life she and Marcus had built together. She thought about the other women who had been driven away by Blackwood's cruelty, about innocent people who might suffer in the future if he wasn't stopped. "I'm ready," she said firmly. "Let's go home and set things right." The return to Cedar Falls 3 days later was unlike anything Emma could have imagined. Instead of slinking back under cover of darkness, they arrived in broad daylight accompanied by 2 federal marshals, Jonathan Hayes, and a representative from the territorial governor's office. Marcus rode beside Emma, his presence a constant source of strength. The trial that followed was a sensation that drew spectators from 3 counties. Hayes methodically dismantled Blackwood's fabricated case, presenting evidence of corruption that stunned even seasoned court observers. The jeweler's testimony about the planted evidence was devastating, but it was the parade of Blackwood's other victims, men and women who had finally found the courage to speak, that sealed his fate. Emma testified with quiet dignity, her voice never wavering as she described Blackwood's harassment and the frame-up that had driven her from town. When the defense attorney tried to attack her character, Marcus stood up in the gallery, his presence and obvious devotion speaking louder than any words. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict of not guilty on all charges, but their work wasn't finished. Within hours, federal marshals arrested Blackwood on charges of embezzlement, abuse of office, and conspiracy. His corrupt network began to crumble as associates scrambled to save themselves. As Emma and Marcus left the courthouse, the same townspeople who had once shunned her now tried to approach with apologies and explanations. Emma listened politely, but without warmth. She had learned the difference between justice and forgiveness would take time. "Ready to go home?" Marcus asked as they reached their horses. Emma looked back at Cedar Falls one last time, then smiled up at the man who had saved her in every way that mattered. "Yes," she said. "Let's go home." 6 months later, Emma stood on the veranda of their ranch house, watching Marcus work with a young colt in the corral. The simple gold band on her finger caught the morning light, and she unconsciously placed her other hand on the gentle swell of her belly, where their first child was growing. The territorial governor had personally apologized for the injustices she had suffered and offered her any position she might want in the territorial education system. Emma had politely declined. She had found her calling not in teaching other people's children, but in building a life and family of her own. Marcus looked up from his work and caught her watching him, his face lighting up with the smile that still made her heart skip beats. He finished with the colt and walked over to the fence, climbing over to join her on the veranda. What are you thinking about, Mrs. Dalton?" he asked, pulling her into his arms. "Just remembering," Emma said, softly, "remembering what it felt like to think I had lost everything, and marveling at how wrong I was." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "You didn't lose everything, Emma. You shed everything that wasn't worthy of you, and that made room for everything." That was. Emma leaned into his embrace, thinking about the journey that had brought them together. She had been cast out by people who claimed to know her, only to be claimed by a man who saw her true worth from the very beginning. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest blessings came disguised as the greatest losses. "I love you, Marcus Dalton," she whispered against his chest. "And I love you, Emma Dalton," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Welcome home." As they stood together on their veranda, surrounded by the beauty and peace of their valley, Emma finally understood what it meant to truly belong. It wasn't about a place or a position or the approval of others. It was about finding the one person who looked at you and said, without reservation or condition, "You belong with me." And in Marcus's arms, with their child growing beneath her heart and their future stretching bright before them, Emma knew she was finally, truly home. Emma walked up behind him and gently placed her hand on his arm. "Look at me, Marcus." He turned slowly, and Emma saw vulnerability in his dark eyes, fear that he had just destroyed the most important relationship in his life. "I love you too," she said simply, watching relief and joy transform his face. "I've been fighting it because I was afraid of being hurt again, afraid of depending on someone who might change his mind. But Marcus, what I feel for you is real and deep, and stronger than any fear." Marcus reached out and cupped her face in his hands. "Emma, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure this is what you want?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she replied, standing on her toes to bring her lips closer to his. "I love you, Marcus Dalton, and yes, I want to fight for my name and reputation, not because I need vindication, but because you're right. Blackwood needs to be stopped." Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, but when Emma responded by wrapping her arms around Marcus's neck, it deepened into something that spoke of longing finally acknowledged. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard and trembling with suppressed emotion. "Emma," Marcus whispered against her hair, "will you marry me? Not because you owe me anything, but because you wanted to build a life with me here on this ranch that we both love." Emma pulled back to look into his eyes, seeing everything she had ever hoped to find in a man: strength and gentleness, passion and respect, love that was both protective and liberating. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you, Marcus Dalton, and yes, we'll fight together for justice and truth and everything that's right in this world. Under the star-filled sky, Emma marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had been cast out in disgrace, stripped of everything she had worked to build. But sometimes you had to lose everything to find what you were really looking for. In Marcus's arms, surrounded by the peace of their valley, Emma finally understood what it meant to truly belong somewhere, not because others deemed you worthy, but because you had found the one person who saw your true value and was willing to fight the whole world to protect it.